Rich people never talk about money. You've heard that 1,000 times, you probably believe it, and that belief right there is the most expensive mistake you are currently making. Picture this: you're at a work dinner, an event, any room where someone who clearly has everything just moves differently. No logos, no announcements. Just this quiet, effortless certainty that comes from never having to think about the bill. And they're talking golf, a property in Phoenix, a decision their team is weighing. And nothing sounds like money, nothing sounds like finance. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a thought forms: they must just never discuss it. There must be some unspoken code among the wealthy, some agreement to keep the vault closed. Except they don't. They were talking about money the entire time, every sentence. You just didn't know the language. Right now, every week you spend not understanding this, you're walking away from conversations that contained real financial intelligence, connections to capital, insights into where money actually moves, opportunities that look to you like small talk because you didn't have the decoder, and the cost isn't just money. When you've been missing the language, you've been missing the map, and you cannot build wealth without the map. Researchers studying intergenerational wealth found something that quietly reshapes everything you think you know about this. Wealthy families don't protect their financial knowledge through silence or secrecy. They transmit it through language, embedded, automatic, completely invisible to outsiders. When a wealthy father tells his kid, "We should look at the cap rate on that building," the kid isn't receiving a lecture. They're absorbing a worldview. When a couple at dinner talks about equity events, they aren't discussing anything complicated to them. It's a financial operating system running quietly in the background of every conversation they have. And to everyone else in that room, it sounds like nothing. Background noise. That background noise is worth millions. Think about the phrase estate planning. Does that register as a financial conversation to you? Probably not. It sounds like paperwork, something distant, administrative for older people. But estate planning is one of the primary engines of generational wealth transfer: trusts, asset protection, tax structures, inheritance mechanics. That phrase alone represents a universe of financial strategy that most people never access because they never learned to hear it as financial. They heard it as boring, and they moved on. The language isn't hiding, it has been in front of you this entire time. I hold mostly cash-flowing assets. We're looking at the carry on that deal. This gives us optionality. These aren't complex terms, they aren't secret. They are just a different language, and like any language, you can learn it. But first you have to understand why you were never taught it. Financial language was never part of your standard education, not because it was deliberately withheld, but because the system wasn't designed with wealth building as its output. You were trained to be a functional, employed adult, not a capital allocator. So the vocabulary you absorbed was a survival vocabulary: budget, save, work harder, cut expenses. Versus the vocabulary that was passed down through different dinner tables: assets, cash flow, leverage, equity, depreciation, net worth versus income. These aren't advanced financial concepts. A 17-year-old who grew up in a wealthy household knows them all, not because they're more intelligent, because the language was in the air they breathed. But here's what makes this harder, and this is the part most people completely miss when they try to learn it. It's not just vocabulary. The vocabulary is only the surface. For years, the internet has been selling you the idea that rich people stay silent about money as some kind of power move. Privacy, discretion, the humble refusal to flaunt their wealth. And sure, some of that is real, but that framing keeps you passive. It positions you as someone standing outside a locked room, concluding it must always be locked. Here's the reversal: the door was never locked, you just knocked in the wrong language. The wealthy aren't protecting a secret. They're operating in a system built over time through networks, education, family structure, and proximity to other people who already knew the code. They didn't construct a wall, they inherited a vocabulary. And vocabularies, unlike walls, can be learned, every single one, but learning the words is only the first layer. Every word in the wealth vocabulary carries a belief underneath it. This is where most people hit the real wall. You can learn the phrase, "my money works for me." It's on t-shirts. It's in every motivational reel you've scrolled past this week. But if the belief system underneath it hasn't shifted, those words are just performance. When wealthy people say, "I don't work for money, money works for me," they aren't saying something clever. They're describing a functional reality built on decisions made differently, consistently, over a long period of time. The phrase is the output of a mindset. If you adopt the phrase without the mindset, you are wearing the jersey of a team you haven't joined. This is why so many people consume financial content endlessly and remain exactly where they started. They absorb vocabulary without restructuring belief, and belief is where the actual financial habits live. Belief about what time is worth, belief about what risk really means, belief about whether wealth is something that happens to you or something you build by thinking differently every single day. Here's the uncomfortable truth: you can read every book, watch every video, know every phrase, and still walk into the same conversations feeling like an outsider, because financial language at its deepest level isn't a vocabulary. It's a way of experiencing reality, a lens, and you can't borrow someone else's lens, you have to build your own. Most people stop here, they feel the gap and assume it means the door is permanently closed. It's not. The lens is built through questions, not facts, not vocabulary, questions. Wealthy people don't ask, "Can I afford this?" They ask, "What is the return on this?" They don't ask, "How do I save more?" They ask, "How do I reduce the percentage of my income I'm directly trading for time?" They don't ask, "Is this too risky?" They ask, "What is the real cost of not doing this?" Those aren't the same questions with different wording. They are a fundamentally different cognitive architecture for processing every single financial decision you face. And the moment you genuinely start asking different questions, not as a motivational quote, not as a mantra you repeat, but as the actual operating logic behind your real daily decisions, your answers start changing. Your habits follow your questions. Your financial reality follows your habits. That is not inspiration. That is compounding applied to thought. That is the actual mechanics of wealth building that nobody puts on a t-shirt because it's too quiet to sell. You came into this believing rich people kept their mouths shut about money, that the silence was the secret, that there was a vault and you were on the outside of it, but the vault was never closed. It was open, surrounded by conversations in a language you hadn't learned yet. The language was there at dinner tables, in meeting rooms, in passing comments about equity and carry and cash flow and capital. The decoder was always available. What was missing was someone telling you it existed. Now you know it does. So sit with this. If the language has been there all along, if wealthy people have been speaking it in public, in plain sight, at tables you've been sitting at, what other conversations are happening around you right now that you're walking away from thinking nothing financial just occurred? The wealthy aren't done talking, they're talking right now. The only question that matters from this point forward is whether you are finally ready to hear them.